Well, we'll make that up in the half hour after.
Absolutely. All right, guys, welcome to the Hurricane Sally edition of Under the Dome. Fortunately for New Orleans, unfortunately for Gulf Shores, this storm Sunday, like it was going up Barataria Bay, and it turned out it's going to be heading probably up Mobile Bay. So, except for a lot of wind outside, I really don't. There's no rain, nothing like that. So hopefully no problems tonight on the show. But as always, keep the people in Gulf Shores and Mississippi Coast and
Absolutely.
so forth in your prayers because this is a terrible storm. It's going so friggin' slow.
Everybody seems to think that if you're like in South Louisiana, you want the storm to hit somewhere else. No, you don't want the storm to hit anybody because you've been through that. You've experienced that. You've experienced the aftermath of that and what it's like to have to deal with all the things that come along with experiencing a hurricane
Absolutely.
making landfall. You don't want to wish that on anybody, nor do we. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all the people that are affected by this storm, just like the two storms prior that we experienced.
Yep. And
Earlier today, we me and a very good friend of mine and uh, a magnificent lady, Mama Carolyn. We gathered up a few supplies, stuff that we could spare, and we did what we could do, and we took it to a truck down here that will be pulling out in the morning to head that way with relief supplies. We felt like we needed to do something.
it's and just like Laura, the east side of the west side of this, no, the east side, I'm right, the east side, looking at it, is really the wet side of the storm. So
Oh,
it's a very compact storm on this side. But yeah, all this rain that has been going on, and because there's no steering currents, there's really nothing. Like Laura had a high pressure system on one side, and they had a low pressure system on to the south, another high. It just pulled that storm right through there. So, you know, um, Lake Charles didn't get the storm surge and the constant rain and the flooding you would expect with a strong hurricane category 2, 3, that range hurricane, but they got the wind.
yeah,
Unfortunately, with this storm, because there are no steering currents, this rain is what you call in a training position where it's just constantly going back over the same area, raining,
yeah,
lots and lots
yeah.
of rain. So it doesn't have the. I mean, the last update I saw, I think the winds were at 90 miles an hour, and that was near the center. But this is going to be a rain and storm surge event, and it's that
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate part. That's what really kills you worse than the wind. Not that the wind is much better. Jerry's out there
People,
in Gulfport. Hope everything's good over there.
Jerry, I hope you're safe, man. Take care of yourself. Don't get in harm's way. Our thoughts and prayers are with you, brother. I've People think that because you're from Louisiana, I guess mainly because of the nationwide attention that was focused on Katrina and the aftermath. Everybody thinks that if you're from Louisiana, you've ridden out a hurricane. Well, I'm 6.5 hours north of New Orleans. So basically, what I get is a lot of wind, a lot of rain, but I don't get that storm making landfall experience. But I can tell you that I have witnessed and experienced firsthand two F4 tornadoes and one F5, and it's someone asked me about that the other day, and I said, you know what, the only likeness that the only similarities that I can draw is you see a hurricane coming from the Cape of Africa, and the
Mm-hmm.
tornado says, "Surprise! I'm here," Uh, it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
I've
I got to pay the bills, man.
oh yeah, go ahead and do that.
Thank you for joining us on Under the Dome podcast. Our week 1 opening season victory edition, and I'm going to touch on that a little more at greater length in a few minutes, because I'm not going to be very gracious in victory. But you can subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. You can follow our show on Facebook on the Under the Dome podcast. And with that, away we go.
I was just getting ready to
I
say.
told people. Go ahead. You make your point first.
Before we get started on that, you were talking about how you lived through tornadoes. I have grown up in South Louisiana. There's a lot of hurricanes I can tell you that I've lived through. My wife was born during Camille in 1969. Betsy hit 2 years before I was born. But I mean, I grew up Hurricane Bob, Hurricane Juan when I was in college. That was a strange one. That was a storm that kind of bounced along the coast, did a U-turn, came back and bounced along, So
I had a great aunt that she lived her entire, to my knowledge anyway, her entire adult life, she lived in Gulfport, Mississippi. And I can remember going there as a young man to her house. I could probably go there right now and drive to the house that she lived in, and she's since passed. But every hurricane that came through, she rode out at her house, up to and including Camille.
Well, I mean, there's just certain storms that have a legendary name to them. And Betsy, Camille, Audrey, for those people who live in Southwest Louisiana, Andrew, there, and obviously Katrina. There are certain storms that everyone remembers, from where they were. And it's not that they're getting stronger or more deadly. It's a combination of improved technology that we can better measure the wind speeds and so forth, expanded population, people living in areas that used to just be sugarcane fields and swampland and everything else, and just how much more expensive these storms are when they hit. So you
can say the same thing about the technology involved with tornadoes and preparing for those, because I can remember in 1981 when I moved to Oklahoma, the advance warning time was 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and in the 3.5 years that I was up there, that was expanded to 15 minutes. And if you don't know the difference between 3 minutes and 15 minutes, you get 100-mile-per-hour winds blowing in a circular pattern, and see what the difference in that time frame is. It's constantly improving too.
I can think of several women who can tell you the difference between 3 minutes and 15 minutes, but that's beside the point. Okay, so Jerry wanted to talk about, of course, the big win on Sunday.
Wait, there was a game Sunday?
Yeah, well, it didn't really look like much of a game.
I thought that maybe since we were having to play the greatest of all time and the Tampa Bay Patriots and Leonard Fournette and Shady McCoy, I thought that because of all that we were just supposed to mail it in and mark it down as a loss, just forfeit and avoid the embarrassment. Was that not the narrative that we heard from the moment that Tom Brady signed that contract?
I'll tell you this much. It was obvious listening to the way Troy Aikman and Joe Buck called this game that the story was in the hopper. Tampa, Tom Brady was putting the league on notice that he is now in the NFC and can be just as dominant as he was in the AFC. And the Saints,
how'd that work out for you, Sparkles?
The Saints had the gall to just totally trash that narrative And every time the Saints did something, you could just hear the dejection in both of them.
And the excuses.
Oh, God, yes, the excuses.
They had the excuses printed out on a list sitting right there in front of them, ready-made for when and if it didn't work.
Well, like I wrote in the teaser for the show tonight, you know, that the big thing was, we ain't the AFC East. You ain't the New England Patriots. Welcome to real football, Tom. You're going to throw interceptions in that system. You're going to struggle a lot in this division because you've got 4 teams, and I'm including Tampa Bay, but you've got 4 teams that all have taken turns being the division champ. We've done it 3 years in a row. First team to do that. No, second team to do that. Sorry. I forgot about Carolina.
This year we set the record.
This year we set the record. But yeah, I mean, all 4 teams have been to the Super Bowl since the division was founded. This is not, you're not playing the Jets. You're not playing the Miami Dolphins, who are perpetually in rebuild mode. And despite how good Buffalo looks right now, you're not playing the Buffalo Bills. You're playing.
Buffalo looked fantastic this past Sunday, but I'll take this back to a season ago. Buffalo looked really well, and they managed to make a somewhat of a playoff appearance. But that's the first relevance that you've seen out of them since players like Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, and that bunch. That's the first time that you've seen them.
Until 2 years ago, Buffalo had not been to the playoffs since the Music City Miracle back in 1999.
Yep.
They hadn't been to the playoffs.
And you know who the quarterback was then?
For Buffalo?
Well, not the starting quarterback that day. Yeah.
Yeah. It was Doug Flutie, but they put Rob Johnson in there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that.
Doug Flutie got him to the playoffs, and Bum Phillips, boy.
No, Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips put him on the bench and started the other guy.
Yep. Absolutely put Rob Johnson, the surfer dude, in that quarterback. And yeah, it's and Buffalo fans still will never forgive Wade Phillips for that. They will never forgive that. That was,
and nor should they.
No, they shouldn't. So let's look at this game. All right. For 2 of the 4 quarters, the Saints really played like hot garbage. I'll be honest with you. That first quarter, they did not look good.
It managed to come out just the way that you and I were talking about the other night. It was the first game of the season with no preseason games. It was sloppy.
Well, and I was really
upset. But they did manage to.
Well, I was going to say, I was really upset that in the third quarter, how badly they looked, because you take away the Janoris Jenkins beautiful interception. I had my daughter's living with us now, and I tell you, when we were watching the game, I said, this is what teams used to do to us all the time. You know, that little sideline out pass, and all of a sudden there's the flash of another jersey coming across, picking that off and going the other way. And I saw that too many times happen to us.
Oh, yeah.
And, I agree with you. Well, I think Tony Romo is the best color guy, period, Chad. I mean, he is. For those of you who are old enough and watched football long enough, don't think of the John Madden on Fox and the Madden that was at the end of his career. That what was that comedian's
CBS
name? Well, who's that comedian who always imitates John Madden and Brett Favre,
Frank Facenda.
Frank Caliendo.
Caliendo.
Don't think of that era. John Facenda. John Facenda is the voice of God. And if I die and get to heaven and God does not sound like John Facenda, I'm going to really be disappointed. I'm just telling you. Because I will if he sounds like John Facenda, I said, okay, then you got to say something to me. You got to say Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to say that. I mean, that
frozen tundra.
No, you got to say the frozen tundra. Although he allegedly never said that. But yeah,
he did say that. I heard that.
Well, I could always swear it was in the Ice Bowl and the line is Jethro Pugh kicks at the frozen tundra. He didn't say at Lambeau Field, but says the frozen tundra to get his footing. And it's that shot of him at the goal line from the ice bowl trying to get his footing right there. And that I remember that. I just don't know where that is. Anyway.
Have we mentioned yet that the Cowboys lost on Sunday?
The Cowboys lost. I didn't watch that game, but my understanding was they got hosed. They got hosed by a pass interference call, and they said, "Now we understand how Saints fans feel." And
you think?
And one of my favorite guys to follow on Twitter, Gilbert Godfrey. Oh my God! One of my guys. One of the guys I follow on Twitter, I think it was either Little Mitch or Boat Lawyer, said, "Yeah, that's like comparing you getting run over by an 18-wheeler versus a Versa blowing its horn at you." That pass interference call. Like I said, I never saw it, so I don't know what it's talking about, but I love the comparison. Anyway,
I don't. I'm not a Cowboys fan by any stretch of the imagination, but that was a terrible, terrible, terrible call.
Well, I was just going to say, when you think of John Madden, at least for me as a great announcer, I think of John Madden in the 80s with Pat Summerall, covering the Giants, the Redskins, the Bears, when he was just making up stuff and just having a lot of fun, and he was young and energetic.
Boom.
That's how I look at Tony Romo today. Tony Romo is sort of like the Madden of, that must be ice cream at the door. Someone in my family
ice cream?
Yeah, we have ice cream delivered to our house. Somebody in my family ordered Cold Stone ice cream, and here Cold she comes Stone. Now. Yeah, that's her running through there now. And
that was a blur. She's quick.
Yeah, well, that comes from basketball. But yeah, we have ice cream delivered to our house on a regular basis. These people know.
And I just barely get pizza delivered to my house.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when this got discovered while we were, during lockdown and everything else. So Cold Stone Creamery now is on speed dial on the internet, and we get this delivered to our house because somebody's craving ice cream. Because skinny person goes to the grocery store and goes and buys groceries. But fat person at night is like, I hate skinny person because we have no ice cream in this house. So yeah, that's what happens in this house. And because I'm not in my office like I normally am, I'm in the front room. That and the front door is right there. That's the difference. Anyway. Going back. Anyway. I knew Calvin would like that one.
To me, I think it's an absolute travesty, if that's not an overuse of that word, that when John Madden went into the Hall of Fame, they put him in as a broadcaster and not as a coach.
Did they do that? I thought he went. Thought he went in the Hall of Fame because of a coach too.
Well, if that was the case, I was not aware of it because everything that I saw at the time was broadcaster, blah blah blah, and that because growing up, I've always been a Saints fan because I mean, duh, I live in Louisiana, but back in that time frame, you had the Saints that you pulled for during the season, and then you had your playoff team that you pulled for after the season was over, and mine was always the Raiders.
Well, it was 16,
which puts me in an interesting dilemma come Sunday.
There you go. Well,
Monday.
Yes, Monday night. In the 70s, there were 6 teams that were going to the playoffs every year. You could just mark it down. It was going to be the Dolphins from the AFC East. It was going to be the Steelers from the AFC Central. It was going to be the Raiders from the AFC West. In the NFC, it was going to be Dallas in the East, the Vikings in the Central, and the Rams in the West. Those were the 6. Yeah. And the Redskins and the Broncos and the Colts or the Patriots or the Houston Oilers or the Cleveland Browns. Those are the teams that were going to be pulling up the rear. The Bears, once they got Walter Payton,
Those were the
those are the wild
sacrificial
card teams.
lambs. Those were the
Yes.
sacrificial lambs of the wild card round, but it always wound up coming down to Dallas and
look at
Los
the
Angeles.
look at the teams that were in the Super Bowl throughout the 70s. So in 1970, it's Colts versus Dallas. Then 71, Dallas Dolphins, Dolphins Redskins, Dolphins Vikings, Vikings Steelers, Steelers Cowboys, Raiders Vikings. It's the same teams. Yeah. It's just you just keep shuffling the deck. Oh, we throw Denver in there for 1 year. Denver got past it 1 year, but it's Dallas. So it's Dallas and Denver.
Orange Crush.
Yeah. Then 78. Oh, Dallas Steelers. 79. Oh, the Rams finally beat the Vikings. So you get Steelers, Rams. That's the Super Bowls in the 70s, from 70 to 79 in order. So I mean, no one else had a shot. If you were the Giants, the Eagles, the Saints, the Falcons, the Lions, the Packers, you didn't have a shot. You weren't going to the Super Bowl. You had to get past the.
No.
And in fact, my 75 Seasons book that I've got behind me back there calls the 70s era the 6 bullies on the block. And that's what they call those division champions. So, it's interesting. Mine was Minnesota because of Cocaine Carter is my favorite player. Hey, all he did was catch touchdowns. I was a Steelers fan Chad, wash your mouth out. I was a Steelers fan in the 70s. And then I became a Chargers fan in the 80s because they had 2 ex-Saints on the team, two of my favorite players. And I like the Dolphins too. But the 80s, the Saints started to be good. So it was hard for me to sit there and say, okay, this is my playoff team I'm going to follow now. It just didn't work out that way. Marino in the beginning with the Miami Dolphins, but
always before Drew Brees came along, my favorite quarterback ever in history was always Dan Marino.
Yeah, I mean, I liked a lot of quarterbacks before Marino, and I liked a couple after Marino. Miami was always my dark horse throughout the 80s in the AFC that was going to go to the Super Bowl. After 84, I had, okay, Miami's going to the Super Bowl in 85. Nope, they didn't make it. They got beat by the Patriots. Okay, Miami's going to the Super Bowl in 86. Nope, they didn't make it. They're the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns didn't make it either. It was damn Denver Broncos. And I'm sorry, Bob Rose.
The drive.
I'm sorry, Bob Rose, but I hated John Elway in the 80s.
I never liked Elway until maybe the last 2 seasons of his career.
I've grown to respect
I did not
Elway.
respect Elway for the way that he handled his draft, because countless players over the years, it's the luck of the draw, man. You're the best player in college, you're going to go to the worst team in the league, and you don't try to leverage that, and you don't come across like a petulant jackass and say, if I can't get the team that I want, I'm not going to play. I'm just going to go play baseball. I never respected that.
Well, and that was probably some of my resentment, because I like the old Baltimore Colts, and I understand now why Elway didn't go. But it bothered me that he did that to the Colts, because I felt like, for years, not knowing the actual story, I felt that Elway not going to the Colts was why the Colts left Baltimore in 1983.
When they pulled what they did, leaving leaving Baltimore in the middle of the night in Mayfair moving vans,
Mayflower moving
Mayflower.
Vans, yeah.
That changed some of the way that I felt about Elway, because that got Elway off the hook and put the Colts on the hook.
It was Irsay. It was the Irsays. They're the ones that did.
Yeah,
I mean, if you watch
too much cocaine.
Well, if you watch the thing about the Colts in the late 70s and the early 80s, when the Irsays took over from when Steve Rosen, I'm sorry, not Steve, Carroll Rosenblum. Steve Rosenblum's the one that screwed up the Saints, but Carroll Rosenblum, when he and not Bob Irsay, I think it was I forgot his father's name, Jim Irsay, swapped teams, and Rosenblum got the Rams, and Irsay got the Colts. That was really setting it up because he had been trying to get a new stadium. There was rumors they were going to move to Jacksonville in the late 70s. They even had a sign out in Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Colts. That was the first bad move that really changed the way people looked at pro football. The Raiders and Al Davis going to Los Angeles followed shortly thereafter because the Colts kind of showed Al Davis that the ownership isn't really going to fight you if you want to leave for another stadium. So,
well, see, much like you, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to most things in the National Football League, and by and large, I have absolutely no sympathy on an organization that just basically cops a squat on top of the fan base that made them who they are. I don't care for the Colts making a run to Indianapolis, the Chargers making a run to LA, the Raiders making a run to Las Vegas. I don't care about all that. That means absolutely nothing to me.
Well, somebody pointed it out the other day, and I'm in one of the football groups I'm in, that the Cardinals have been in Arizona or Phoenix longer than they were in St. Louis. They were in St. Louis for 28 years. They've been in Phoenix since 1987. So, they've been there for 33 years. So technically they've been.
And Larry Fitzgerald has played for them every year since then.
So, it's funny when we talk about tradition, but it's what you grew up with. The Colts will always be the Baltimore Colts. And to me, because that's just how
I still have to every Sunday. I have to stop and correct myself to say the Los Angeles Chargers instead of the San Diego Chargers. And I have a very, very close friend that is actually a cancer nurse in San Diego, and I can't repeat to you her sentiments towards that organization for uprooting and moving to LA.
Well, and all that is it in this kind of free agency, even free agent football teams. That's kind of how people feel now. For a long time, I never liked the idea of the St. Louis Rams. They were always the Los Angeles Rams, and it's funny because they were in Cleveland first, and then they became the Los Angeles Rams in the 40s. But for me, it's what teams were in what cities when you started watching pro football, and that becomes a tradition. So, a long roundabout way. Let's go back to talking about Tom Brady in the Tampa Bay Patriots or the New England Buccaneers. It was funny because you've got Aikman and Buck and the media pretty much acting like this was going to be the Patriots being dropped in the middle of the NFC South, and they were just going to do what the Patriots do. And here we have Bill Belichick winning with Cam Newton. Sorry, I knew I was going to screw that up. Cam Newton earlier that day. Here comes Tampa Bay against the Saints in an empty Superdome. So you've got this annoying Madden 97 era crowd noise, which just looks terrible. It sounds terrible. It doesn't match up to the play on the field. And the Patriots the Bucks could have stolen that win because they didn't have to deal with, 140 decibel sound on third down. And, Brady doesn't have to deal with these lunatics in a stadium that was built in 75 that just contains sound and dumps it all into the middle of the field. You could hear, I heard when Chauncey Gardner-Johnson laid on the turf, I heard him say, "It's a cramp. I got a cramp." That's how quiet it was in there. You could hear everything that was being said.
There's a lot of difference between like 140 decibels, like you said, and what the league mandated at 70.
70. I looked
You
it up.
got timeout.
Yeah, I looked it up. 70 decibels is equivalent to running a vacuum cleaner. 140 decibels, and that's the upper limit. I mean, that was the loudest I'd heard the Dome when they got the little numbers running up on the screen. 140.
The night that they set the sound record for an indoor stadium against the Carolina Panthers, I was there. I have stood next to jet airplanes that were taken off from a tarmac that were not as loud as it was in the Dome that night.
They equated 140 is equal to being on an aircraft carrier when a fighter plane's taking off and you get the afterburners. You hit the afterburners, you hear that sound. So, those of you go back, watch Top Gun, very beginning, right before Danger Zone kicks in. That's what I'm talking about, So yeah,
and plus it's not out in the middle of an ocean. It's contained in an enclosed environment.
Right. I mean, and we still got Vita Vea to bite on a fourth down with a hard count, which was amazing. He's over the ball. That's what we talked about John Madden earlier. John Madden used to talk about that all the time. He's like, "You're over the ball. Look at the ball." But
what's the best meme that you've seen since Sunday?
I'm trying to think.
I can tell you mine.
Which was it?
It was a picture, that now famous picture of Jameis Winston standing there holding the tablet looking like this.
Oh, yeah.
And it says, y'all tried 5 years to make me into Tom Brady, and it took y'all half a game to make Tom Brady into me.
Well, the funny thing is, I predicted in the beginning of the season, the most interceptions Tom Brady's ever thrown in 1 year is 14. Last year he threw 8. And I said, I think it was on this show, I said, I expect him to get double that amount.
Yeah,
I expect
it was on this show.
Yeah,
because you made a point to point out how all the quarterbacks in an Aryan system, when they're starting out, they go through that malady. Yeah.
Well, he's already thrown 2, so I'm 14 away. If he averages one a game, I got it. And I think he will, because that deep out that he tried to throw, I thought that ball hung in the air. And that's the other thing that pissed me off about this show, about this game. I'm reading the results after the game, and I'm hearing all these people who were, knob polishing for, Tom Brady and all the rest. And now they have, because the Saints had the audacity to win this game, are now going, well, I didn't think the Saints looked that good. They were supposed to be the Super Bowl team. I didn't think they looked that good. Drew Brees didn't he could push that ball down the field. Excuse me.
All we did was get the W, baby.
Did you look at that pass on that deep out? There's a reason why Janoris Jenkins jumped on that route. That ball floated out there. That ball hung out there for a long time. So, it drives me crazy. They act like Brady isn't older than Drew. And all the things that they assigned to Drew Brees, they never assigned to Tom Brady. And it's frustrating, because
it doesn't
matter how many times you beat the man. There's always a reason why you beat him.
Yeah. You ready-made excuses.
Yep.
Just like you and I were talking about off the air. They had a list sitting there of everything that Tom Brady was going to do to win the game. And if that didn't work, there was a ready-made excuse out to the side of each one as to why the Saints were able to win the game.
Absolutely, Chad.
Now, we've had our fun with this. We've had our fun with this, but I've like I said, I'm not very gracious in victory this week, um, but it's one game. We still got 15 more to go,
Absolutely.
and
We got a lot to
and
work on.
and and one is going to be against the same team, and I promise you that it will not be the same game that you watched Sunday.
Well, Tampa Bay, I can't believe they even put the stat out. After we won, and granted, we were really well, let me first say Tampa Bay put out this stat saying they were proud of the fact they held Alvin Kamara to 1.3 yards per carry, which was his lowest total in his career. And it's like, and people are like, dude, you lost.
He scored two touchdowns.
He scored 2 touchdowns. And really, he was a step out of bounds before he got the ball across to break the plane away from scoring 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, you can brag about all that crap all you want, but the fact is the man scored 2 touchdowns pretty easily against you and scored a third one. That was going to be pretty easy. And I got to say, I was so happy to see petty Sean Payton because what is the things we've been saying, on this show since the Vikings defeat, that we really want an offense that's going to close out the game as opposed to putting it on the defense to hold on to a lead. And I thought the pitch back to Taysom Hill, and he threw to a wide open Alvin Kamara. And people pointed out, I think Jared Cook was wide open downfield too, and,
he was.
and probably could have scored. In both cases, that's one of those things where, the game's in hand. Yeah, it's about 2 minutes left in the game, and we could have punted the ball away, but we're going to go and shut this game.
Yeah.
We'll shut you down.
Yeah.
We're going
let's make a statement.
Yeah. We're going to finish this off.
We're not the only ones that have sit and listened to all this garbage all this time about how I saw the direct quote from Tom Brady the other day, how Breeze could take all of his records, but he was going to come in and take over the South and stuff like that. We've sit back and we've said, okay, it's good that you got confidence, and we haven't talked trash, and we haven't tried to instigate anything. Well, seeing Tom Brady with that look on his face on the sidelines, you can call me petty, you can call me a jackass, you can call me anything you want to call me. I got satisfaction out of that.
Well, the thing, my brother's right too, didn't allow a 100-yard rusher. The thing about
for 44, either 44 or 48 consecutive games.
Yeah.
By the way,
and
thank you, Danny.
The thing about about what the Saints were able to do to Tom Brady, when you're with the Patriots, you play a team once. You can get a lot of surprises on a team, and boom, it's over with. You don't have to. You got to play a team twice. So you're going to be playing the Falcons twice with that offense twice. You can get them once, but you might not be able to get them twice. And the same with Carolina. They play Carolina, I think, this Sunday.
What year was realignment? That was 2004.
2002.
Okay. Since 2002, that makes 18 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
How many times has a team swept the division in this division?
Never.
No
team has ever swept the division.
People have lambasted me when I say that the NFC South is one of the most highly contested divisions in this league.
Absolutely.
But the proof is in the statistics, man.
Even when we in 2009, when we went 13-0, one of the games we lost 2 divisional games that year. We lost to Tampa Bay and we lost to Carolina. Now the Carolina game was because we had everything sewn up. There was nothing, and that's usually how
we sat our starters that game. That was usually the last game of the year.
the years that we win 13 games and we play Carolina, it seems, at the end of the year, and we lose to Carolina, or we go 4-1. I'm sorry, 5-1 against our divisional foes. It's always that last divisional game where we sat our starters. That's why we lost.
And I can live with that.
So, Calvin, 2020, first time you'll sweep the division. Well, it'd be great if we do. But
it would be fantastic.
My point with all this is, Tom Brady's going to have to bring his A game every week against an NFC South opponent, even Carolina.
Yeah, you're not playing the Jets. You're not playing the Dolphins. You're not playing these also rans of the AFC. This is the NFC, and team by team, it's no comparison between the AFC and the NFC. You have your stronger teams like what we saw last night with Pittsburgh, what we saw last night with Denver. You have those strong teams on a year by year basis, but you don't have the team by team by team by team toughness that you have in the NFC. And I don't care what anybody says.
I mean, you don't face the weapons that you face in this division. I mean, you look at the receivers, and I'm just going to say, let's just exclude Carolina for right now because they are rebuilding. But, you've got in this division, you've got, Michael Thomas, you've got Drew Brees, you've got, now Emmanuel Sanders. The Falcons have Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. And Tampa's got weapons as well. But my point is, you're not dealing with a revolving door of mediocre quarterbacks like you do in the AFC East.
The Dolphins,
the Jets, the Dolphins quarterback, even Buffalo. You're not dealing with a revolving door of inferior talent playing against you. And that's the difference. That is going to be the difference. So
you tell me another division in football that lines up Teddy Bridgewater, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees on a week-to-week basis. You're not going to find that.
No, and this division, when Cam Newton was here, you had between Cam Newton and Matt Ryan, you had two MVPs in the same division.
Within 2 years
stuff.
Of each other,
right? All that stuff. So it's just that's why it was so frustrating to hear the media talk the way they were talking, because it was like they were acting like this was 2002 and the NASCAR division, the junk division. That's not what this division is. And it just shows you how the media views, the NFC South in general, because they just do not respect that division at all. No matter how many Super Bowl participants you send, they don't have the history that we were just talking about in the beginning of Vikings or Packers or Steelers or even Indianapolis when they were the Baltimore Colts, or, they don't have that history.
And once again, I got really frustrated in the fact that all season long, or all off season long, all you heard was Brees Brady week 1, Brees Brady week 1. And then you hear these reports coming out that it's the highest rated this and that. And the overriding headline coming out of week 1 was, look what Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah, I know.
It gets frustrating.
It does.
Because this man has earned the accolades that come along with his play on the field.
And I'm telling you, if Drew Brees was playing for Miami, doing all this for Miami or Dallas or someone like that, he would get that recognition, and he's not getting it. Two things real quick.
You said Cowboys, and I pictured Drew Brees wearing that star on his helmet, and I think I've got a hemorrhage.
Yeah. But one of the things that Anna just brought up was, and this goes really the third quarter, how bad the offensive line looked in the third quarter, especially. I thought all five played badly. If anybody was going to give a pass to, probably was going to be Drew McCoy at center. But in many ways, it resembled the Minnesota Vikings playoff loss because once again, it seems like everybody was putting their pass rushers on the inside and were stunting and looping and had overload blitzes on the sides and we didn't have enough guys to pick up the blitz.
We didn't give up any sacks, did we?
Yeah, couple sacks, but we didn't turn the ball over, and that was the difference. We sacked Brady, I think, 3 times. Maybe more than that, because I know
Bray got 2. I know.
Yeah, Hendrickson got 2. Cam and Davis. Demario Davis. Yeah, split 1. So it may have been 3 sacks, but
I don't remember us giving up a sack.
No, we had a couple. It was one on 3rd down. It was like a jailbreak, and they just sent everybody in.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're right.
And Levante David and Devin White were like in the backfield all day long. Those flare passes and bubble screens, they were blowing those up left and right. And Drew was just not very sharp. Oh yeah, Ganderson got a strip sack. Thank you. That was one of them. I do remember that one. So I'd have to go back and look at the stats, but basically we looked terrible in the 3rd quarter, but in the 4th quarter, it's like they sort of straightened out the blocking and Drew got time again. And I think that's, if there was a negative I took out of this game, and we'll talk about, Mike Thomas's injury in a second, but there's a negative I took out of this game. It was definitely the offensive line pass protection and run blocking was just bad.
Well, let me ask you this. How much of that is the absence of Cesar Ruiz? He's been such an integral part of camp in terms of the starting lineup and starting rotation. How much of that do you credit with him not being available for the game Sunday?
I think he's definitely an upgrade over Easton. I thought Easton had one of the worst games. Pete had his struggles. I saw there was a couple of plays where he completely whiffed on blocks or fell. But there were also plays where he got out in front of the screen and really leveled people and got into the secondary. So that's why that's the problem with Pete. Pete, you get a bad
feast
play.
Or famine.
Yes, you get bad plays and good plays with him. I thought Easton just struggled from the beginning. I thought he really had a lot of trouble.
Easton is not going to be a Andres Pete. He's not going to be a Teron Armstead. He's not going to be a Cesar Ruiz. He's not going to be a Ryan Ramczyk. He is exactly what he's billed as. He's a backup. And you're not going to get that top level performance out of him the way that you would the other guys.
But I thought
I thought that I was willing to give. I understand what you're saying about the offensive line. Mm-hmm. I was willing to kind of write that off as first game, whatever. You're still feeling each other out. You're still trying to develop that chemistry as a unit. I make absolutely no excuses for the shortcomings because at the end of the day, you got to perform out there, and which. Judging by the scorecard, they made a bigger impact than their counterparts. So, I accept the W, and we go from here.
And Chad, I agree with that. I think the play calling too was suspect, and Sean Payton even said it. He did a terrible job calling plays.
I disagree.
I thought he went to the flare passes, and he was playing to Tampa's strengths. A lot of times with a lot of bubble screens and underneath stuff. And Tampa was just coming in. They were sending 7 guys, 8 guys in there. I thought if we would have gone a little more max protect, I felt like we had better matchups on the outside. And I think that's what you saw later on in the game when we started keeping the tight end in to block, putting Trotman out there to block and putting Cook out as the wide receiver. I felt like we saw a lot better protection once we started doing that and helping the guys out and chipping and keeping it back in to pick up the blitz and so forth. I thought we did a better job on that. And yeah, I think communication as well. These guys, they've only had 14 practices, padded practices together. First time they really went out there and played at that kind of level. And I thought that's why we had the problems we had. I'm hoping Ruiz comes back this week. Because
let me clarify that. I said that I didn't think that the play calling was suspect. It's not so much the play calling as I liked the progression. Forgive me if I word this wrong. The progression that Peyton has made. I love the fact that he used the running back.
Latavius Murray?
Yeah, I love that he used Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara the way that he did.
Yeah.
Because finally he's taken advantage of the strengths of the two of them. When he needed that inside run, he used Murray. And when he needed that outside burst, he used Kamara. And that's what we begged for last year. And never got to see.
It was closer to how we used Ingram and Kamara in 2017, 2018. You definitely got a good mix. I think Kamara got 12 carries and Murray got 13. So it was, and the play call was almost 50-50. So
yeah,
all that looked good. It's just some of the plays they were calling, I thought they could have really taken advantage because Tampa. Todd Bowles just sending people in. He was just blitzing all game long. And I thought we had opportunity.
Well, you got a 40-plus-year-old quarterback. I'd do the same thing.
Well, and that's exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking, hey, the way you disrupt the Saints offense is go after Drew Brees and disrupt it.
Get in his space.
Yeah. And as bad as we played, we still were a step out of bounds from dropping 41 points on them. Granted, 6 comes from a pick 6, but still you're scoring over 30.
I'll take it.
Right. So imagine how good if we would have been blocking better and executing better plays, how badly we would have beaten that team.
But I can't help but think that that's just something that given the unusual and strange circumstances of this off season, that's something that's going to come. That's something that you're going to build towards and accomplish with more snaps, more experience. You're going to get that eventually when you can basically play on the fly and beat a divisional opponent in the opening week of the season. Hey man, I'll take it.
Okay, so reports say that Michael Thomas is going to be out several weeks. Now, granted, this is Ian Rappaport, and that kind of stuff, but so you have to take that with a grain of salt. At the end of the game, one of the last offensive possessions near the goal line, a player, I think it was an offensive lineman, fell on the back of Thomas's foot and pinned it for a second before he could pull it out. So he twisted his ankle, and it's that dreaded high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Which, takes some players, it takes 6 weeks. Some players, they struggle with all season. How do you think the Saints are going to compensate? Because I don't think Thomas is going to be available for the Raiders game this Monday night. In fact,
with it not being a conference opponent, I don't think that they're going to play Thomas versus the Raiders. And obviously, moving forward, they're going to reevaluate that as they see fit. But at the same time, Thomas is a gamer. You're basically going to have to put a gun to his head and say you're not playing to keep him out. I just hope that he's got the foresight to be smart about it. I hate to see Thomas out, but to be completely honest, and I'm trying to word this carefully. I would a whole lot rather see this now than I would have at this point a year ago.
Yeah.
You've got a much stronger supporting cast behind Thomas now than you did a year ago. It's absolutely going to kill his soul to be on the sidelines and not be available to play. But you have to be smart about this and realize that you're not playing for September or October. You're playing for January and February.
Well, and that one of the things I noticed in the game, Jared Cook got a lot of catches. He got a lot of looks too.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill got a pass in the very first play from scrimmage. They tried to get the ball over to Sanders a few times. He drew pass interference calls because of that, and he did catch a touchdown pass. Yeah, you saw a lot more weapons being used. I think Benny Fowler gets called up again, and he's active, and they probably run him in the offense too.
It's a lot different going up against an AFC opponent than it would be if we were playing, say, the Packers.
I went back and watched the highlights of the Raiders Carolina game, and I'll be honest with you, that secondary did not impress me for Las Vegas.
No, they are predominantly dependent on that running back Jacobs.
Jacobs,
that's their bread and butter. They don't have that.
And 83, the tight end.
That's a secondary lower level.
Henry Ruggs got hurt, and I don't know if he came back in the game or not, but I saw that. Ruggs got hurt, and I never saw him come back in the game again. So I don't know what's the status of that guy. But, yeah, it looks like Derek Carr goes to the running back, Jacobs, and the tight end, number 83. I don't know his name. But that looks like that's his primary weapons. And Teddy Bridgewater had a lot of time out there, and if they did get a pass rush on him, he was able to duck down and pick up yardage with his legs. And they had a lot of trouble handling Christian McCaffrey. So I think Murray and Kamara, you'll see this probably a split like you did Sunday. You'll see a lot of those guys, and I think you're going to see a lot of Cook and Sanders and Kamara and Hill out there as pass receiving targets. Darren Walker, Waller. Darren Waller. I wasn't sure. I kept wanting to say Walker, and I knew it wasn't that. So, Deontay Harris, I worry about him because he's so small. I saw him run a jet sweep. I saw him run a reverse. And I saw him catch a pass. But, I worry about him. But, Waller and Jacobs look like they're two number one weapons. And I think if you can get pressure on Carr, which I think we will be able to do, I think Carr makes the mistakes.
Did you happen to watch the games last night?
No, I didn't see either one of those either.
The Titans played the Broncos.
Yeah, I think that's who they played.
That was a really, really good game. Pittsburgh just kind of steamrolled the Giants, as I pretty much figured that they would. But I watched in detail. I watched Jadeveon Clowney to see if we missed on an opportunity. No.
Well, I think you got more production out of Hendrickson than you would have got out of Clowney, honestly.
Absolutely. I think maybe that Jadeveon Clowney may have been a wake-up call for T-Rex. I really do.
Well, he had a good matchup because they kept the tight end on Cameron Jordan's side to try and chip and protect against Cameron Jordan. And they left – and, in fact, the coach even threw Arians threw his offensive tackle into the bus and said, you had the easiest guy to block, and you couldn't block him. Yeah, and that's Chad's right. The Raiders' strengths are our defensive strengths. Run the ball. And I think the fact that it's John Gruden on the other side, I mean, you're basically – our defense has been practicing against John Gruden's offense for 15 years because Gruden and
But
Peyton run the same thing.
but let us not be hasteful and slothful and forget a few years ago. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was on opening day. We played the Raiders, did we not?
In 2016, yeah.
Yeah. How did that turn out?
Well, that was Jack Del Rio. And well, but we lost that game because of defense.
We couldn't play the run.
No, we couldn't, but we also at the end of that game, we had a shot to win it, and we let a big pass play go through, and I don't think you can have that, honestly. I just don't.
No. I think that the defense, I was really, really, I mean, even being opening week, at least I can speak for myself. My expectation level on opening day, even with a preseason program, which we didn't have this year, my expectations on opening day is just to survive, basically. And I was very impressed with the way that the defense played on Sunday. All things considered, I think that they played fantastically.
Yeah, I do too, and honestly, I think the defense is going to be even better in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
because of Michael Thomas not being there. I thought the special teams were outstanding. I really do.
absolutely. Absolutely. The thing that scares me the most, actually, moving towards week 2 in Las Vegas, is the possible necessity, of having to use Deontay Harris on the offense rather than the special teams, and risk, as you said, he's not a big guy. I don't want to see us lose our special teams to facilitate the offense.
I agree. I mean, I don't think that'll be the case either, because I think you saw outstanding punting by Chad mentions Henry Ruggs. The thing about Henry Ruggs, I don't know if he's going to be playing, because like I said, I don't know if he came back in that game or not. I saw him on the sidelines getting a knee looked at, and then I saw him go to the locker room. But this is the highlights. I didn't see the whole game. So yeah. I never saw him show up again in another highlight. And he looked like he was a key part of their offense in the game. And again, yeah, our special teams, I think, are far superior to the Raiders special teams. With the kick return, Thomas Morstead kept Tom Brady in that offense pinned most of the game with terrible field position. I think they'll do the same thing in Las Vegas. It's just there's a lot of things playing in our factor, so we should win this game.
I agree. I think that this is going to be, I'm not going to say an easy win, because none of them are easy at this point. But I'm going to say that, looking at everything on a base level, I think that there's no reason why the Saints shouldn't be able to win this ball game.
No, there isn't. I mean, this
isn't the Kansas City Chiefs that we're playing.
No, the Chiefs are playing at the end of the season, unfortunately. But no, we should be 2-0, and we need to get off to that fast start.
We did.
Yeah, Latavius Murray did play for the Raiders in 2016. He did. The
guy that broke our back in that game was from Louisiana. I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Well, the two things I remember about that game in 2016 that stood out, well, one, the Brandon Cooks touchdown was just amazing. The longest 93. Longest play from scrimmage. But our secondary could not stop the Raiders passing game. No. When Carr needed a big play, he got it. and I don't think he's going to get it. I think the secondary is light years better than it was, obviously, in 2016. I think
My game
Jenkins.
ball this week goes to
Mhm.
Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins.
Yeah. Well, I
Uh,
mean, and I thought all of them played well. Every uh, significant scoring drive the Buccaneers got, they got shortly after a big pass interference call.
sure.
And except for the one that Marcus Williams got flagged for, I thought most of them were pretty questionable, especially the
Yeah.
Patrick Robinson one. I thought that was one of those ones that you would see in a postseason game where they would just go, let them play. Just don't, you don't call that stuff. I
There
thought
are
the
certain
arm.
things you can always depend on P. Rob for.
Well, but I mean, I thought that was good coverage. I really did. I mean,
Yeah.
they both had each other's arm, but he did not grab that arm as opposed to the one the Bucks fans were bitching about. On Sanders, where he grabs Sanders' shoulder, then grabs his arm and pulls him back. I thought, the two arms kind of wrapped around each other really didn't interfere with the catch because he comes across with his other arm and just bats it away, clear as day, and doesn't touch him. And he's got his head turned back to the ball. I just thought that was one of those they should just let it go. But,
Absolutely.
that was Tom Brady. So
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the
I
fact
agree with
that
that.
what?
Oh, the Lattimore call in Evans was BS. Oh, I totally agree with that.
Well,
Um,
I think it's worth mentioning that Mike Evans has not caught a pass against Marshawn Lattimore since 2018.
yeah. And I'm sorry. I thought they should have thrown a flag on Evans. Yeah, Lattimore got busted for pushing Evans in the back like that. But
We're after 9 o'clock, so I'm fixing to elaborate on my feelings on Evans.
as soon
But I'm
as
gonna let you
Evans,
go first.
well, as soon as Evans spun around and ripped his helmet off, that should have come to a second flag.
Yeah, that should have been
Because,
an automatic ejection.
well, even if you're not going to
Evans is a
eject him,
punk ass,
yeah, he is.
second-rate player that he can't keep his cool. We saw that 3 years ago in the Superdome when he
Yep.
sucker punched somebody from behind.
Lattimore.
Yeah,
That was after. After what you call it. Winston puts his finger on the back of the helmet. And he comes running across the field. Yeah, that's the thing. I thought
Mike Evans is a punk ass bitch.
Yeah, well, I don't understand the Buccaneers being so damn chippy because it's not like you've done anything for the past 12 years. So well, yeah. I mean, I can understand if you have been winning and you've been doing stuff and you're just not getting respect. And you got, people are still treating you like the Yuccaneers. But you have been the Yuccaneers.
I have to make a public service announcement before I forget. I made a post on Facebook shortly after the game ended on Sunday. Many of you saw it and commented. And for those of you that didn't, it has since been removed because Mama called me down. But I meant every word of what I said about Troy Aikman, about Tom Brady, about the whole shooting match. This team deserves and has earned the respect that they should have gotten from winning that game. They listened to your garbage and your bullshit the entire offseason about how Tom Brady was going to come in and the Buccaneers were going to be the next dynasty. Okay. Enough with all of that. It didn't happen. I meant every word that I said in that post, and I stand by it. Now, I'm only going to address this one time and one time only. There's a lot of people out there that have chosen to boycott and not watch the NFL because, look, people, personally, I'm sick of all the social justice garbage that's got to be included in what we watch on Sunday. I just want to watch football. I don't give a shit about the rest of that garbage. And I don't think that it should be a part of watching a football game to be played. I understand that there's people that have chosen to not watch, and I respect that. With all of my heart, I respect that. I did not make that choice, and I expect to be respected for my choice. So don't come at me with this garbage. Please.
Well, you know, I've already said my piece on that stuff. As I said, I respect a lot of people who are boycotting. I respect the people who feel like they need to make a statement. My
I
choice
saw
is,
people posting pictures of Drew Brees kneeling on the sidelines, and right to his left was Zach Strief.
yeah.
Dude's
And
been doing the play-by-play for 2 years now. How old is that picture?
well, not only that, but sometimes
Come
when
on, man.
they show him kneeling down, it's from the prayer circle at the end of the game. And you know, my opinion about all that stuff is pretty well known, but basically my attitude is I'm not going to listen to the lecture, so I just turn it off and I come back when the lecture's over with. And I don't, because I know people would not like someone like me, to come up and say, let me explain all the reasons why you're wrong and I'm right and why you need to correct your thinking. You know, that's not a conversation. That's a lecture.
No.
And I'm not going to listen to a lecture because I disagree and I have a right to disagree. And if you want to have a conversation about things, I can be very civil and list I have all the data to back up my opinion. It doesn't necessarily make me right, but
it doesn't make you wrong either.
I have an opinion that is formed based on statistics and facts, like every other opinion I try to form. I did research on it, things like that. So I don't need to listen to a lecture because I'm not allowed to respond. So I turn it off and then I come back and turn it back on to watch the Saints play. That's all I'm saying about that.
All I care about is watching football. I don't care about if this one feels the need to get on his knees while the national anthem is played. He has the freedom to do that. I have the freedom to not respect that.
Well, and Anna touched on a point. I don't blame you. I didn't watch any of the pre-games either. It was very surreal, but it's not hard to do. I mean, I used to watch. Yeah, yeah. I've watched that cartoon, How to Play Football, Goofy's How to Play Football. I used to watch ESPN religiously.
Was that starring Colin Kaepernick?
I used to watch ESPN,
and I haven't even began to touch. Yeah. I haven't began to touch the nerve that is him being considered for the Hall of Fame.
He's not. That was some fan starting trouble, so don't even go there. But I
did have an aneurysm just then.
But you know, I used to watch that religiously. You know, going back to college years. You know, I go out Saturday night, stayed out past 2 a.m, wake up about 10:30, quarter to 11, and turn on the TV and put on ESPN and watch the pregame show. It used to be an hour back then. Now it's 2 hours. And I'd watch, you know, Chris Mortensen and Tom Jackson and Chris Berman. I'd watch the pregame show. And then I go and put on CBS. And back then, the NFC was by CBS. So, you know, I had my choice. because Saints games, people believe it or not, the Saints games, even during the Dome Patrol years, were still blacked out in New Orleans a lot of times. So I had two CBS stations in Lafayette. I had the Lafayette CBS station, Channel 10, and I had Baton Rouge's Channel 9. So I used to love it because I got 3 NFL games. I could put the Saints game on Channel KLFY TV 10. I could put on the Baton Rouge, whatever NFC game they had on, because we weren't getting the Saints. And I could put on the NBC AFC game. So it was fun back then. So yeah.
Hey man, I can remember getting up on Sunday morning, going to church, coming home, and watching Jane Kennedy, Irv Cross.
Oh yeah,
Brent Musburger.
My brother is starting shit with me because he knows exactly how I feel about the sports reporters. Yeah, we used to watch the sports reporters in the apartment we had together in college when he got there in my first year. And he had this big fat dude, Bill Colin, Dick Shapp would do it. I'd watch his head nod the whole time he was talking. But you'd have these Northeastern reporters. That was it drove me nuts. My brother watched this shit. It was the Northeastern reporters talking about sports. So all they would talk about is whatever national teams, shit that was going on, something, down in flyover country. That wasn't important. And this guy, big fat bastard, would sit there with his coffee cup. And every time he had to make a point, so he didn't spill his coffee cup, he had to put his hand over the lid. And I'm like, why are we listening to it? It was him. It was a little nerdy, wormy looking guy from the New York Times, Mike Lupica.
The only person I despise more than him is the one that does the boxing.
One guy I did respect from Detroit Free Press, Mitch Albom. That was the guy who.
Yeah,
I felt like Mitch Albom was listening to me, and he was the guy like from Detroit because the Lions stung, but he was the one that was actually the one that would come out there and say, you guys talk about all these teams. What about the rest of the country? And you had the Philly guy would be up there, or somebody from the LA Times would be out there, and it was, it would drive me crazy. My brother watched that shit right before the pregame because you get that. There was something that came, 9:30, you got the, that came on at 10 o'clock. At 10:30 came on Sports Center for a half hour where you got the gambling part of the show. Gambling's illegal, but we're going to tell you about the point spread and who's injured and who's not injured and all this stuff so you can make your bets. But gambling's illegal, boys and girls, but we're going to tell you about the point spread. And then that would be
Kellerman.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah,
he's the dick.
Yeah,
or the jerk. I grew up in Jimmy the Greek days.
Oh yeah, Jimmy the Greek. Yep,
Jimmy the Greek going to cutoff to interview Bobby Hebert.
Hey, I'm old enough to remember the NFL Today with Phyllis George.
Yeah.
And that was probably my first crush as a little kid watching the NFL Today. And Irv Cross. Jane Kennedy came. Well, when Phyllis George got pregnant, Jane Kennedy came through, and then she left the show and Jane Kennedy stayed. But Phyllis George, I used to love to watch Phyllis George do her little piece, and stuff. Jimmy the Greek would have his Pete Axhelm. Pete Axhelm. You still refer to Green Bay versus Tampa Bay as the Bay of Pigs because that's what Pete Axhelm used to call it. He was on NBC, then he came to ESPN.
Who's the best Super Bowl broadcaster that you loved from your childhood?
This is gonna sound
mine will shock you.
I still like Pat Summerall and Brookie, Tom Brookshire, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen.
No way.
Yeah.
Dick Enberg was mine.
Oh my! But I like Merlin Olsen because I like Merlin Olsen.
Dick Enberg was mine.
Was was a very straightforward stand.
Yeah.
Don
Crickey.
See, Don Crickey used to bug me. Don Crickey, I never, and he went back and forth. I didn't realize he went back and forth. I always associated him with ESPN, NBC, because it was Don Crickey and Bob Trumpy would do games on NBC, and that became in between him and Charlie Jones. Those were like the voices of AFC football. I
loved Dick Enberg's delivery and the way that he was not flashy. He was not wasn't funny like a John Madden would be. Mm-hmm. And Summerall was always the straight man to Madden. Enberg was just straightforward, and I loved his calls. I watched the game between the Oilers and the Bills, the greatest comeback and all that, and that was Dick Enberg.
I would probably go, and if I went to another announcer of the 70s that I really liked, it'd be Kirk Dowdy. I like the way
that was a little bit before I really started paying that much attention to it.
Kirk Dowdy, I associate in my head for whatever reason to Raiders games. I heard him call a lot of Raiders games, and of course, he did Super Bowl.
See, I remember Kirk Dowdy. I remember Kirk Dowdy more from the American Sportsman than I do NFL games.
Okay, yeah, it seemed like,
and there's people watching us right now that are going, "What in the hell is he talking about?"
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just because these are 1970s games. I started watching football in 74, 75 on television. Those are the earliest days I can remember watching a game, but I would, in 74 and 75, I couldn't sit through a 3-hour game. I would commercial come on, I'm out the door. And I come back in later, and then I'm out the door again, next commercial break. I never sat and really watched a lot of games.
I never retained that much from that early age. I might come in and see a few plays. The highlight for me at that age was making it to halftime and seeing the bands make the magical formations and stuff.
But by 76, I started watching games more and more. In the third and fourth quarter, I would sit and watch a whole game. I was learning the game. Didn't totally understand it. Yeah, well, 77, I can tell you exactly where I was for that game. The Baltimore Colts versus the Oakland Raiders. We had gotten this, my dad's uncle had died, and we got this 13-inch black and white TV. And I had it sitting on the kitchen table we broke the antenna already, so we had a clothes hanger stuck in the antenna with aluminum foil wrapped around it. And I sat and watched that game at the kitchen table at my parents' house.
Was it color or black and white?
It was black and white. My brother knows exactly the TV I'm talking about too. The little one, the white one, not the one we played Atari on, but the little white one. And we had sitting there. I'm sorry, it wasn't 13. It was 9-inch. It was a 9-inch screen. And I had a 13. I watched that game on that little TV, and I was actually pulling for the Colts that year because I like Burt Jones. My best friend's dad was a huge LSU fan. All I heard about was Burt Jones, LSU, Burt Jones. So the
Rustin Rifle.
No, that was Dad's Uncle Tommy's TV. That we didn't get that from a gas station. We might have got the other one from the gas station. That was
for Christmas. For Christmas one year, my mom and dad gave me a 13-inch black and white TV, and that's what I watched the Doug Flutie Hail Mary game. Mm-hmm. I was outside cutting firewood, and I took the TV and set it out on the back patio, plugged it in, closed the door and everything, and the entire course of that game, I was out there cutting wood. And as it got older and further into it, I was spending a lot more time watching the game than I was cutting wood. But yeah, man, 13-inch black and white.
And then that was 77. And then, of course, watch the Super Bowls and stuff like that. And then the next game I really remember sitting there, and I watch the Super Bowls and everything else, but the game I really remember sitting from beginning to end to watch was what I consider the greatest game I ever saw, the Chargers-Dolphins playoff game in the Orange Bowl in 1981. I watched that in my parents' room. They had a color TV in the back because my dad was watching something else. I don't know what the hell he was watching. And I'm just like, you got to turn this TV on because you got to turn this game on. This is an unbelievable game. I think my dad turned it off because he thought the Dolphins would get blown out because they were already up 28-0. And, from the hook and lateral on, I'm like, Dad, you need to put this game on. This game's unbelievable. You won't believe what just happened. And
when that game was played, we were driving back to Oklahoma, and we listened to it on the radio in our van. So I heard the entire broadcast of that over the radio.
But it's funny, when I think about games and stuff and associate certain voices, I don't remember, I barely remember from watching replays. It comes back to me on YouTube, but I barely remember John Brody when he was a color analyst on NBC.
Yeah,
I barely remember some of these people, the other announcers, but there's certain people I just like. Oh yeah, that was CBS to me. Oh yeah, that was NBC to me, and that was how
I can remember some of the names like the Kurt Gowdy. I can remember Walt Garrison did announcing for a little while. But the most formulative things that I remember was, and way before I got into it at such a deep level as I am now, Monday Night Football meant that I got to stay up later, and I could watch football game, and I wouldn't have to go to bed on curfew. So Don Meredith and Howard Cosell.
I only saw. Frank Gifford.
O.J. Simpson, Bruce Jenner.
Yeah. Well, it was O.J. Simpson was in there, and then they had, then later on he had Howard Cosell got fired for saying, "Look at the little monkey run," talking about the Redskins receiver. He did. I mean, that got
I remember.
Fired. Yeah, that was
just like Jimmy the Greek.
Yeah. And that's when Al Michaels comes in not long after that. 86, I think Al Michaels becomes part of the Monday Night Crew.
And Dennis
Miller was 2000.
Dennis Miller.
Yeah, Dennis Miller was
2000. What the hell?
Because they were trying to bring back that 70s era, of Howard Cosell was not he was a sportscaster, but he was not a football guy. In fact, he wrote a thing.
No, he was the lawyer.
Yeah, but he was a sportscaster too. I mean, he was a lawyer, but he did boxing. He did ABC's Wild World of Sports, and he started doing all kinds of other stuff. They even gave him a special to do. But, they were trying to do that with Dennis Miller. They thought he would be kind of that obnoxious foil, and it just didn't work.
Well, Dennis Miller never bought into it the way that
the little monkey. The little monkey was because that was his actual nickname, not Ricky Sanders. Because we're talking the 83 Redskins, 82, 83.
Ricky Sanders, Art Monk.
It'll come to me in a second. Hang on a second.
The Fun Bunch, the Smurfs. Jesus.
Hang on. I got it. It'll come to me. Alvin Garrett.
In other words, you're Googling it. It'll come to you, but
Well, you're right. It was the Fun Bunch, but it was Alvin
Yeah,
Garrett. I knew it wasn't
yeah,
Art Monk or anybody like that. He that was his nickname, and that's what Howard Cosell's defense was. They told him that's what they call him on the team, and when he said, "Look at that old monkey run," and people didn't know that, and they were just outraged by it. So that
yeah,
that was the end of Howard Cosell, and unfortunately, that was really the end of the golden age of Monday Night Football, because
yeah,
you don't realize this. Don Meredith left in 73 after the 73 season, so he was only there for 2 years or 3 years. Goes to NBC, does NBC until 76, comes back to Monday Night in 77. But, you just did not, people think of, I think of, I'm sorry, Frank, Dan, Dandy Don and Cosell throughout the entire 70s, but it really didn't work out
yeah,
that way. It's just that's the
yeah,
presence that those three had. And in New Orleans, Monday Night Football used to come on at 8 o'clock Central Time back then. In New Orleans at 7:30 came from the press box, Buddy Del Butto, and he would have a special guest from the Saints where we talk about the game, and you get a watch from Oakland Heart Jeweler, so that would be that would be from the press box. You'd see that at 7:30 before the game. 7 o'clock was whatever primetime show ABC had at the time.
Heidi.
On Monday night. No, it wasn't Heidi. That was 68. That's Kurt Dowdy. That was 68. 68 NBC.
Can you imagine that happening now, though?
No, because that's such a.
And there again, there's people watching going, "What in the hell are they talking about?"
Yeah, 1968. For those who don't know this, 1968.
It's a playoff game, was it not?
No, it wasn't. It was a regular season game, but it did determine where someone was going to play in the playoffs. The Jets ended up hosting the playoff game, but they lost this game. The Jets were winning. They were the afternoon game because they're playing in Oakland. The Jets were winning, and the Raiders scored 2 touchdowns in the final minute of the game. They went down the field. They scored, kicked off. Jets fumbled the kickoff. Raiders recovered it, scored a touchdown. Next possession, I think it was a pick six or something like that, and they scored 2 touchdowns in like a minute, whatever it was. And NBC had scheduled at 6 o'clock, Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central time, that Heidi was coming on. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the guy, didn't hear any command saying, no, keep the game on until, because the game had a lot of penalties and stuff, because it's the Raiders and the Jets. A lot of penalties in the game. Keep the game on and just delay Heidi or pick up Heidi in the middle of the broadcast, So 6 o'clock, the hour hits, the guy hits the button to switch over from the game to Heidi. And back then, this is why NBC's the Peacock station, because that was they went color in the 60s, and the Peacock is full of color. So that was the thing. You get that boom, 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 and they show the Peacock open up and Heidi starts. And for the East Coast, Central, Mountain time zones, everybody saw Heidi. On the West Coast, they still had the Jets game, and the people at the Jets Raiders game, they got to see the end of the game, but no one else saw it, and you get a crawl at the bottom.
Times they have changed.
Yeah, they said blew out the switchboards at 30 Rock. Blew out the switchboards. They never had that happen before, and it's now known as the Heidi game. But it was an important thing about sports and television, because it showed that football had surpassed baseball's national pastime, that people were more interested in football than what the ratings and stuff showed. And it was an important moment for the AFL because here the AFL had been losing Super Bowls. It was considered a Mickey Mouse league, and yet this is a game between two powerhouses in the AFL. And there goes Sean. Two powerhouses in the AFL, and people were so outraged they lost the game. They blew the signal at 30 Rock. So that it's an important game. So every time the Jets and the Raiders play, especially in November, they mention the Heidi game. All right, Sean, I'm waiting to see if you come back. Last thing I wanted to say to you guys. Oh yeah, that was a good show, Chad. I used to like to watch that. I used to like to watch it before a Monday night matchup. They would do that, and a Monday night matchup, it was Ali Sherman and Ron Jaworski would do, and Charlie Steiner hosted it, and it would preview the Monday Night Football game. So yeah, those were good shows. Yeah, I did not like Ron Jaworski was not a good guy to have in the booth. Dennis Miller was horrible. He is forever on the 2000 playoff win because that was the only year he did Monday Night Football. Dan Deerdorf, I didn't like in the beginning. I began to like him, or he grew on me on Monday Night Football. Al Michaels was the same way. He is a pro's pro, but wasn't a big fan of him in the beginning, especially because you had Al Michaels and Frank Gifford, and I thought both of them were play-by-play only guys. And I didn't think Frank Gifford offered very much in terms of analysis. So when you had Michaels and Frank Gifford and Dan Deerdorf in the booth, it just didn't work. Because I thought Gifford just basically was the guy who repeated everything that Dan Deerdorf was saying anyway. And my brother would mention we could only watch Monday Night Football at halftime. That was true because we had school the next day, so that was the cutoff time. That would happen about 9:30 Central Time, was because Monday night started at 8:00 instead of 7 like it does today. Real quick, because I thought Sean would be back by now. Real quick, predictions for for next Monday night. I don't even know who the announcers are on Monday Night Football anymore. When my daughter had the Steelers game on, I thought I heard Kirk Herbstreit talking. So it sounded like they had the college guys doing one of the games. I could be wrong. I don't even know who does the games anymore. I loved when Mike Tirico was doing the games. I thought Mike Tirico was perfect. But Monday night, regardless if Michael Thomas plays or not, I think the Saints' strengths are the Raiders' weaknesses. The Saints' strengths are in their passing game. I think the Raiders' secondary is suspect. I think the Raiders' defense has trouble with speed running backs, which Alvin Kamara is. And I also think that what the Raiders like to do, and Chad pointed this out, is what the Saints are best at: stopping the run, making you pass, and they don't have the okay, thank you. Steve Levy, Louis Riddick, and Brian Greasy. No wonder it's not like college football. Okay. It did. It sounded like college football to me. But I think the Raiders, what they like to do, the short passing game and to the tight end and the running game, I think that plays to the Saints' defensive strengths. I think the Saints do a hell of a job. I think the Raiders look good in the first half, and I think they look good in the fourth quarter. But I think actually, I do have some more funny stories about your dad. I have to think about it though, but I do have some funny stories about your dad. But yeah, Kornheiser was terrible too. That's sports reporter guy too. That was a sports reporter. My brother thinks 32-20. I don't think it's going to be that close. I think it's going to be closer to almost. I think they'll drop 40. Honestly, I think they'll drop 40 on the Raiders, and I think the Raiders only score 17, and I think 7 of that 17 comes in the fourth quarter. I think the Raiders just have a hard time keeping up with the Saints. Playing an empty stadium helps a lot. Yeah, I agree. 35-17 works fine with me too. I just, unless Henry Ruggs really is healthy and doing a lot of damage in the secondary, running free, I just don't think that offensive line protects Derek Carr enough to do that. To really, because I thought they had what it looked like they had a lot of trouble with Carolina, and Carolina's supposed to be terrible. So yeah, I think the Saints just overwhelm the Raiders with too many weapons. I think they have no answer for Taysom Hill, for example, and I think Alvin Kamara just they can't stop him. I don't think they can stop him. Yeah, 43-13. I can see that one. Like I said, I think they dropped 40, and I think the Raiders really struggle to score points. I think they have to settle for field goals, and I think their field goal kicker misses a couple. I'm curious to see what this stadium looks like. I really am. Funny story about your dad, Genevieve. I have to think about that for a minute. I had a story in mind last time. I really don't have a good one this time. I can't. I'll have to think about a particular event where he did something. I can tell you that whenever we went on family vacations, your dad, we weren't even out the driveway yet, and your dad is going into the ice chest for food and drinks already, because that was the only time we were allowed to have soft drinks was on vacations. So he was into the soft drinks first thing. Soft vacations and Mardi Gras. That was about it. And family stuff. Who is the better bowler? I stink. So a dead man is a better bowler than I am. I have zero coordination when it comes to bowling or golf. So anybody's a better bowler than me. I don't know how good my brother is at bowling. But yeah, that's about all I can really think of from Oh, I'm not surprised. I expect if the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Anyway, I thought Sean would be back by now, but so he's not. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight for the rest of us. Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, we went way over time, but hey, I was worried that for a while there we were having trouble getting on the internet. That's why I'm in this front room instead of my office. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time, hopefully 2-0 under the dome. Big dilemma this Sunday, too. I forgot about this. Big dilemma this Sunday. Cowboys, Falcons play. People ask me, who are you going to pull for? I am pulling for the giant meteor. That's who I'm pulling for in that game. Falcons, Cowboys, Tampa Bay versus Carolina. I'm pulling for Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. I'd love to see the Bucs start off 0-2 or worse, because the rationalizations and the backtracking would be outstanding. Anyway, that's games to look forward to this weekend. We'll see you next time under the dome, where we're going to be 2-0. Good night, everybody.